car anymore, so you couldn't even buy a brand new even if you wanted to. But my point still stands. I have a few cars that I buy new because they're one of one specs for me, and I just can't get these cars anywhere else. But you know, sort of mass production cars and whatnot, unless you're getting an allocation. For example, me, my watch portfolio, I bought all my watches new and direct from the brands, but that's because once again, I've made multiple millions of dollars from my watch collection. But if that's not the case, please let someone else take the depreciation. I just see so many people pissing away so much money on cars, and even me, I buy all my cars cash. I know in some instances it actually makes more sense to finance. Whatever, my liabilities are your liabilities. I don't want to, you know, them to accrue interest as well on top. But even though I pay all my cars cash, I still, in my mind, mentally factor in depreciation. I'll give you an example. I talked about one of my other videos. I also bought a 765 LT, and the last owner of that car 2 years prior bought that car for the equivalent of about $700,000, I believe, 2 years ago. And I bought that car with 6,000 kilometers, whatever, a year and a half later for equivalent of like $300,000. No matter how nice a car is, and I have an insane car collection, for me, the idea of losing 200 grand a year on a car, that would just ruin any prospect of me enjoying the cars. So please, unless you get to a point where you are so ridiculously wealthy, and I'll be honest, I genuinely feel like I've gone to that point in life, I still like will just, I'm not gonna buy new. I'll just let another knucklehead take the depreciation on it. And by the way, that was really drilled into my mind well before I ever started buying cars by a mentor of mine, a mentor who's extremely wealthy, could buy one of these cars every single day for an entire year and not even notice it leave his bank account. And that's why the next money lesson I want to tell you is that mentors truly will shortcut your path to success. And by the way, some mentors will fall naturally into your life and some mentors you will have to pay, and that's fine. You know, I've done both in my career and I've done both in my life. Now, of course, as you start to become more and more successful, you know, it really becomes a case of you're so valuable to people or in the market, and vice versa. You know, you can exchange value. It's just in the earlier stages of your career, it's hard for you to go to a mentor and then be like, yeah, cool, like let me just pour all my wisdom into you. You know, usually at the higher stages of when you've accomplished something in life, and you know, people have also seen that you're already successful, mentors actually want to pour into you more because they're like, okay, I know if I teach this person something, they will listen and they will actually take it to heart and implement it. Now, one of the biggest mental switches you need to make in your mind is stop consuming, start creating. Consumers stay broke. And if you think about a global economy and its outputs, and what is an economy? An economy is basically just a massive value exchange. People are exchanging services, goods, etc., etc. Now, do you want to be on the receiving end or do you want to be on the giving end? AKA, do you want to be the person who's constantly paying for value and then paying to extract value from people, or do you want to be the person that's getting paid for their value? Listen, no matter how big or small that value is in your mind, I'm not saying that you need to reinvent the wheel here, but someone made this straw, and Shake Shack, well, actually, I don't know if Shake Shack made the straw, but more than likely, Shake Shack paid the company that made the straw. Okay, there we go. That's a value exchange. Let's say you create a digital product about something the market wants. And even better, you're smart, so use AI to help you with that process. But that's a discussion for another day. Well, then you have created rather than consumed, and then the market can pay you for your creation. So there are truly so many ways for you to make money in this economy, but the only way that you make money is by starting to create rather than being a consumer. And by the way, that even applies to social media content. You want to start creating content rather than only consistently consuming it. Now, on the topic of consumption, I love how all these are like naturally flowing well. I'll be honest, I literally just wrote down a list of like a bunch of things I want to talk about, but these are actually flowing quite well. On the topic of consumption, credit cards. That's one thing I want to talk about. You see, credit cards, if you do them right, and you slowly increase your credit limit and you pay it off at the right times, credit cards can become one of your best friends. I can tell you right now, my best friends, my mom, my loved ones, they're always flying business class, they're going on holidays. In fact, even after tomorrow, my mom's going to Maldives, 5 days, and all that is paid off by points. I send my mom to Maldives multiple times a year. I'd say 70% of the time it's with points, and even her flights, first class and business class flights with points. So if you actually play things right, number one, obviously incredible benefits that you can get from credit cards. Now, please, if you're financially irresponsible and you don't know how to manage your money, credit cards can be one of the most soul-destroying, crushing, worst things for you to ever do. So please understand everything I discuss here. This is not financial advice. This is just me speaking to the younger version of myself. There's certain bits of this you can take and you can agree with. There's certain bits that you don't have to agree with and you don't have to actually implement. But if you are financially responsible with your money, as I said, credit cards, not only do you receive so many benefits, but number two, you also build up your credit history. And there will come a time in your life that you do want to have incredible credit history. You want to have great lending terms. You want to have great relationships with your banks, whether that's pulling equity out of your properties, whether that's getting a Lombard loan against your stock portfolio, all these things, you know, like you baby step your way there. So, you know, start off with credit cards to eventually getting good relationships with your bankers, getting great lending terms, etc., etc. Now, I feel like everything we've talked about here is mainly about like building and also, you know, what do you do to not waste your money? But like this next thing I'm going to talk about is genuinely, I think, the number one biggest wealth killer, and that's comfort. And I see it all the time where people hit their first $3,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $100,000 a month, $1 million a month, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you need to understand when you're watching me or you're watching some other person, when I hang out with my friends that are even, many multiples more wealthy than me, I don't look at them like we're different people. I'm just like, we're both playing the same game. We're loving the game, the game of life. You're just more steps ahead of me. And at some point in your life, you were at the stage I'm at right now. And in the same way, you might be watching me and going, oh, well, it's so crazy. I don't know how to do that. It's like, listen, we're both playing the same game. We're both experiencing the same experience of life. It's just, yeah, maybe I've been doing it a little longer, so I'm a little further ahead. And by the way, that is why I always keep my videos up on YouTube from 10 years ago. I have documented my entire life, the highs, the lows, the wins, the losses. I'll be entirely honest with you, there's a bunch of people who come on YouTube and say a bunch of shit that they've never actually lived, or you just kind of have to take their word for it. Every single thing I've ever said is proven, backed up, validated on my YouTube. Just as long as you have an open mind and an open heart, and also the energy to watch back through a bunch of my old videos, I leave them there on purpose, which is to show people the entire 10-year journey I took to get here. But anyways, getting back to my main point, genuinely, I think about like people I know where we were in, neck and neck 5 years ago, and then, maybe now, at least in the domain of business and, not even business, just in my life in general, I guess they kind of stayed like this and I went like this. And listen, there's a big case to say that, maybe they live a better life than me because, they're more balanced. I guess for me, balance, I don't really care. I like seasons of intensity in all areas of my life, whether that's work, fun, whatever it may be. But the point is, if I think about people that I know 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and we got to very different destinations in life, why is that? Well, we were running the same race and we ran at the same pace. And in fact, maybe they were even ahead of me. And at some point they were like, you know what, I'm good, I'm comfortable. And they just decided to sit by the side of the road, and they were like, you know what, I hit a fast 5 kilometers. But they never wanted to finish the marathon. They decided that they appreciated the side of the road more and the comfort of the side of the road more than finishing the marathon. That's a choice everyone has to make, but I can tell you right now, that will be the biggest wealth killer you have in your life. Comfort. By far the biggest wealth killer. If you want to get wealthy or rich or whatever term you want to use, and especially if you want to stay there, comfort will be your biggest enemy. And I've seen it time and time again. I can tell you, being successful in life, I'm not discounting it, I'm not discrediting it. Of course, it's difficult. But every single one of you, if you focus your mind on it, will be successful. Now, do I think that all of you guys will stay successful? To be honest, I don't know. Because in my opinion, not letting comfort creep in and staying successful is substantially harder than getting success in the first place. And it's funny, talking about this concept of comfort, that brings me on to my next point, which is your parents' financial advice is probably 30 years outdated. And the reason that ties into comfort is because, of course, your parents want to advise what's comfortable to them, what they know. So for example, for them, they might say, oh, keep money in the bank. You have to focus on being a homeowner because that's how probably they made majority of their wealth, but that may not be how we made our wealth. Now, let's say, for example, for us, we tell our kids, I don't know, some people have a good time in crypto, some people have a bad time, but let's say you have a great time in crypto, you might tell your kids in 30 years, oh, well, you just have to invest in crypto. And it's like, maybe, or maybe is there something else then that's a far more responsible investment? Now listen, in general, investing in property is safe. Investing in the S&P 500 is safe. These are more timeless things. But let's not even say, where to invest your money, even just how to earn your money. Of course, if you listen to most of your parents, they'll tell you, go to college, get a degree, all this stuff. Listen, I don't want to be that dickhead that just is like, college is a scam. It's like, let me not bite your ear off about it. I just think at this point, it's like a open secret. Everyone just kind of knows it. Unless you're in an industry that you have to go to college, there's no benefits. I have hired hundreds and hundreds of employees. And I guess even between my companies, that number goes to probably 1,000 plus. Now, of course, I'm not involved in every single hiring decision and whatnot, but I have personally hired, let's say in my 10 years, in the hundreds of candidates. I have never asked for a CV. I don't care. Now, bear in mind, by the time it gets to me, we know that a person's competent, they can, do their job. So for me, I'm looking a little bit more about if they're a culture fit. But if you listen to your parents, they're still in the mindset of 30 years ago. And 30 years ago, honestly, the best way to make more money genuinely was having a better college education. Now, that brings us on to our next point, talking about basically this ever-changing world that we live in. And one of the big things that the internet and making money online has afforded us, and even just remote work, you've got multi-billion-dollar companies now that are all remote. It's insane. And one of the things that this has afforded is geographical arbitrage. So what I mean by that is my general bases, where I spend the most amount of time, is Dubai and London. These are two of the most expensive cities in the world. Now, I'm fortunate that I've done relatively well in my career where I guess I can kind of live anywhere and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect me. But if I wanted to get the most bang for buck, and in fact, I even did this in 2021. In 2021, I wasn't, or at least the businesses weren't where they were now. I was still doing incredibly well. And I had my base in Dubai, but Cape Town was a place. I had a house in Cape Town for a few years. And my house in Cape Town, at least back in 2021, I know prices have gone up now. I had a 7-bedroom, I don't even know how many square feet. Like, that place